spending a few minutes with Kiaundra backstage, and one thing I can tell you is that she's never been to the Central Valley, let alone Tulare, California. Never knew where Tulare was. And she gave me an experience about her driving through and seeing cows and seeing the things that we see every day. So without further ado, before I bring Kiaundra up, can we please stand to our feet and welcome Miss Kiaundra Jackson to Tulare, California?
Hello, everybody. Am I good on the mic? Oh, there we go. Hi, everybody. So if y'all don't know me by now, my energy is on a 10. So the more energy that I give y'all, I want y'all to give that same energy back to me, right? Because I came all the way from Los Angeles, California to be here with y'all in a city that I never heard of. When Tamara hit me up, I said, what is it? I literally said, Tulare. I said, what is this? I had to Google on my phone in order to figure out where you guys were, and I found that you guys were literally about 3 hours away from me. So I'm excited to be here. Not only am I excited to be here, but I'm excited to talk about mental health, right? And come on, yes! And I'm excited about this because we don't get a chance to talk to, I don't get a chance to talk in spaces like this too often, right? Not only am I talking to people of color, but I'm also talking about this in a church setting. And this is actually something that's brand new, so shout out to the pastor. Come on, stand up. Come on, real quick. You know, it's so powerful. I had a few words with him backstage, and we were just kindred spirits, and I'm so excited that he has brought this platform. So today I'm going to be talking about mental health. Today's discussion, and I'm going to try to stick to my time because they told me that I only got a certain amount of time, and I like to talk because I'm a therapist. So today we're going to be talking about mental health 101, just basically what that is. We're going to tap on what mental illness is. We're also going to be talking about knowing when something is wrong and how to identify some of the symptoms that you may be experiencing. We're going to talk about ways to manage your life, and I'm going to give you guys some positive coping skills. And we're also going to have a little bit of conversation about where to seek services, because oftentimes people do not know where to look, how to look. They don't know that therapists like me exist. That's black. That's bliggity black. That's from Compton, California. Listen, I got one. Come on. I met her backstage. She's from Compton. Oh, we got 2. We got 3. Come on. 3 people from Compton. I'm excited. So black therapists like me exist. We're out here. We're thriving. We're doing the work and all of those things. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, but 1 in 5 people in the United States will suffer from some type of mental health issue. Did you guys know that? 1 in 5. So I'm not sure if we can do this real quick because I know y'all eating, but I know there's probably about 5 people at your table. So if one person real quickly can stand up from each table real quick, just all over the room, one person from each table. Come on, y'all. I told y'all my time is limited. Some of y'all not standing up. I see you. You're not invisible. I know some people are not able to stand up, so I'll respect that. So if you guys look around the room, just take a look around. If this was indicative of the United States population, this is who would have mental health issues. Not saying you in particular or you in particular, but I'm saying 1 in 5 people will experience some type of mental health issue. So you guys can have a seat. And this gets a little bit trickier, or it hits home a little bit more when we put it into perspective, right? And so when that 1 in 5 is your mama, is your cousin, is your mother-in-law, is your child, is an employee, is a church member, the 5th person on your row at church, working in your workspace, it hits home a little bit closer when you personalize it, right? Because when you think about things, in the black community, I'm not going to go there. I'm skipping ahead. But in the black community, we typically don't talk about issues like we should. And that's why this information is so powerful. This is another statistic that I wanted to share with you guys. 50% of mental health issues will begin by age 14. I want that to soak in just a little bit. Because when people say, oh, he or she been like that, it's fine. Most of the time, they've been dealing with this stuff since they were 14. Right? It don't just come out the blue, right? You don't just pop up one morning and just be like, oh, I'm dealing with something. A lot of this is rooted all the way from adolescence. And so it's become so normalized, or it becomes a part of who we are, that we don't even know that it's actually an issue. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more today. So I wanted to give you guys this. Mental health or mental illness does not respect any person, any boundary, any race, ethnicity, geographical location, your socioeconomic status. I see a few people taking notes, which is awesome. I love it. It has no preference on your sexual orientation or your religious preference. So that means mental health issues, they disrespectful. Like we like to say as millennials, it's disrespectful. So that means you can be tall, short, fat, big, skinny, come from the projects, come from money in your mouth, be dark-skinned, be light-skinned, have a beard, don't have a beard. It doesn't matter. Mental health issues do not care about any of that, and it comes in different shapes, sizes, and forms. And to be honest with you, for us people who are of the melanated persuasion, meaning people of color, our black and brown people, we experience issues on a whole different level and a deeper level. And it's oftentimes that we aren't the ones who want to go seek help because of how we've been treated historically and systemically in our community, right? Oh, y'all gonna keep it real with me? Okay, because there has been so many different accounts in our history of when we weren't treated like we should have been. I can name 1,000,001 situations, but what comes to mind for me when I was thinking about this was like the Tuskegee experiment. Anybody know about the Tuskegee experiment? Right? When there were individuals, specifically African-American males, who were not treated for syphilis when there was a cure available. So that's just one example of how many times either our government or our healthcare system has failed us. And this is one of the reasons why we're so apprehensive and we don't trust people and we mistrust and distrust the system because of situations and circumstances like that. And those are all valid. Let's be clear. Those are great, I can't say great reasons, but those are valid reasons to not necessarily mistrust individuals or people. But what I have found was, can you go back to the other slide for me? The previous one? Thank you. But what I have found was those are some of the reasons why we're not seeking help like we should. When something is wrong, we don't really tap into what needs to be done in order to make sure that we are healthy and whole. And this creates a generational pattern, a generational cycle. And that's why we have this superwoman or superman complex where we can do it all and be it all, and that's the furthest thing from reality. Anybody know who Charlemagne the God is? A few people. If you guys don't know, he's one of the co-hosts on The Breakfast Club. And I think it was back in 2018 or 2019, he actually went live on VH1 with the therapist and did a full therapy session. Did you see that? I see you shaking your head. I don't know if y'all know how powerful that is, but a black man on national television had a full-blown therapy session. We don't even want therapists to know our business in session in a small room, let alone on a national scale. So what he did was he broke down a number of barriers. Because one, he showed the world that black people go to therapy. Specifically, black men go to therapy. And it's okay to process and talk about the issues that you have going on, right? You don't have to keep everything inside. While I was so excited about that, because y'all know I'm all for mental health, I was like, woo, woo, we got a black man on TV in therapy, like, yes. When I read through those comments and saw what people and people from all different walks of life, what they said about it, I was perplexed. These are some of the things that I saw. Next slide. I'm trying not to laugh because I'm sure some of you guys have heard or have said, let's be honest, have said some of these things. Let's be clear, right? What goes on in this house, stay in this house. You can't tell me Big Mama ain't never said, you better not say nothing to nobody about this, right? But that talks about how we have this perception as black and brown people to keep everything inside, keep everything at home. You better not tell nobody, right? So we grow up thinking that that is okay behavior, and then when something not so good happens to us, right, we think it's abnormal if we talk to somebody about it. Since we're in a church setting, just pray about it. How many people heard or said that before? Like, nah, just pray about it, right? Now, I'm a believer, and I'm saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Spirit, all of that, right? Let's be clear. Let's be clear. Don't let this professional stuff fool you. I can get down with the best of them, right? I can shout and all that. But oftentimes, we minimize people's issues when we tell them just to pray. I firmly believe that God can heal, He can restore, and He can do anything that we want Him to do. He absolutely can do that. But sometimes, and many times, God raises up people like me to walk people through some of the most difficult times in their life. I can't tell you how many times I have been on my office floor with the client crying, literally with them, because God has gifted me with that empathic nature of literally walking through and helping people process and go through their healing. And so I want y'all to know that you can pray and go see a therapist. You can believe in Jesus and go see a therapist. You can do both. You ain't got to do one or the other. You can have both. Just like you would go to a doctor, God has gifted those people with the capacity to help you. Same thing goes for us in those spaces, in these spaces. The next one is you'll be fine. It's not that bad. We minimize people's issues. Like I mentioned before, it's fine. It's all good. Therapy is a waste of money. Now, I'm not going to lie. My rate is my rate. And I may not be the cheapest, but sometimes you can't have the cheapest and the best all at the same time. Sometimes you got to choose. You want the cheapest or you want the best? I'm just saying. But we're going to talk about some reasonable resources. Y'all laughing. I'm just keeping it real. I told y'all I keep it real. But we're going to talk about some reasonable resources for people who can't necessarily pay out of pocket for higher rates for therapy. Black people don't get depressed. That is a lie from the pits. You guys have no idea. When I wrote my book, Staying Sane in an Insane World, it's out there, for you guys to purchase today. When I wrote that book, I did a lot of research on specifically celebrities who have had mental health issues. And my mind was blown, y'all. I'm talking about blown. You have no idea what people go through on the inside, and they may look all glitz and glamoury on the outside. You just never know. The next one is we don't tell people all our business. Don't tell all your business to a stranger. That kind of goes back to the idea of what goes on in this house stays in this house, right? That's another misconception. And here's my favorite one. And I'm sorry if there is any Caucasian people in the house today, but therapy is for white people. Y'all know, behind closed doors, we have said or have heard that for sure. But it also goes back to just what I was saying a minute ago when I was saying we have this mistrust and this distrust of our healthcare system because of how we've been treated historically and systemically. So let me be honest, absolutely, Caucasians have been going to therapy way longer than we have. For real, they'll go to therapy in a minute. They like, oh, I scraped my knuckle, let me go to therapy, I'm traumatized. Like they will go there in a minute. And that's not anything bad. That's not anything bad at all. But we can't put a race thing on this, right? When you have an issue, you have an issue. I don't care if you black, white, brown, whatever the case may be, therapy is not just for white people. Next slide. Let's get into kind of what mental health is, because I know there are some people who don't necessarily know what it is, and you kind of like, we talking about this thing, but I don't really know the definition. So for the people who's taking notes, mental health includes so many different facets of who we are. It includes our emotional, our psychological, and our social well-being. Tell them, baby. Come on, tell them about mental health. Yes. But it really includes how we think, how we feel, how we act, and it also determines how we handle stress and how we relate to other people. This is a quick and dirty definition. Like, this is what mental health is at its most basic level. But if you don't know how your mental health plays into other aspects of your life, you are doing yourself a huge, huge disservice. If your mental health is not right, nothing else gonna be right. Your relationship, come on, I told you I'm a relationship expert. I see y'all. So many different components. Everything is interconnected and interrelated. Next slide, please. Things become a little tricky, and it falls into the mental illness category when things get a little bit off kilter, right? This is when your brain doesn't function like it's supposed to function in its highest level. So this is when we have disruptions in how we think, how we feel, how we communicate, and how we behave with other people. We have seen so many examples of this in movies, right? Where we would say, ooh, that person crazy? They doing crazy stuff, they saying crazy stuff, they seeing hallucinations, they think the alien's gonna come down and get us. All of that is literally mental illness. And, okay, I'm gonna say it, Holy Spirit. Sometimes we get confused with mental illness and spiritual warfare. We're not gonna go there today, because this ain't that kind of situation, but I felt led to say that sometimes those two are not always the same, and we have to do a little bit more understanding of what those two are before we just label somebody as they possess, they demonic, they blah, 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 right? And it could be that, let's be clear. Sometimes it is a situation that we gotta get the Holy Spirit on that, but there's sometimes it's not, right? And when we have a deeper understanding of these things, the whole trajectory changes. Next slide. In working in some of these spaces, I find that two things typically happen. Because we're going to talk a little bit about how do you know when something is wrong? Because I can guarantee by the time I leave here, there's going to be somebody who pulls me to the side and says, Kiaundra, I needed that. Kiaundra, something has been a little bit off on the inside of me. Haven't been able to pinpoint what that thing was, but when you talk today, I know now that I need to seek some type of help. So one thing I've learned is that most people don't even know a problem exists before they can even solve it. Like I mentioned before, since 50% of us who experience mental health issues experience them by the age of 14, it's normal to us. Especially if you're 30, 40, 50, 60, and you've been dealing with something since you're 14, that's your normal life. You don't think anything's wrong with you. This is how I've been for decades, right? And then there's another group of us. I know it's a little cut off, and you guys can't see it here, but there's some of us who's just plain straight up in denial. Let's be real. They like, I know I got a problem, but it ain't that big of a deal, you know. I might cuss some people out every now and then, and I beat up a few people, been in jail a few times, but you know what I'm saying, it's not that bad. It's like, really, sis? Really, bro? You need some help, right? But there's a group of us that's in denial. And once we get out of that denial state, that's when we start the healing process. That's when that breakthrough comes on. So next slide. Oh man, this is kind of dark. It's all good. So here are some examples, because I want to give you guys, one thing about me is I like to give people practical, tangible things that they can walk away with. I was talking to a pastor about this. He was like, I need the how too. Don't just talk to me in theory. Let's break it on down. And so here are some examples or some things that you can kind of tap into yourself to see if you do any of these or you have any of these. And this could be an indicator that something is wrong. Feeling extreme anger or worry. Relationship difficulties. Isolation, meaning you trying to, not be around people. You love, enjoy being in your room and being away from people. You have no desire to go to work or school. extensive grief or loss, which means someone may have passed away or something like that, and you're still dealing with it past a certain point. You're having frequent bouts of crying. You don't even know why you're crying. You're just like, I just wake up, my tears be flowing. Something's not right. Reckless behavior. We're out here turning up, right? Doing all of this in the club, spending all our money, gambling, all of that, reckless behavior. Eating too much or too little. We're going to talk about that too a little bit. Use of alcohol and drugs. Now, let's be clear. A little wine. All right, y'all not waiting for me to keep it real. I mean, if you want to have a little wine with your dinner or whatever, feel free, There's no condemnation in that. So, but I'm talking about when things are overdone, right? Changes in your sex drive or your libido. And then also if you're sleeping too much or too little. These are signs, just some quick signs for you to tap into. And if you identify with any of those, you ain't got to raise your hand. You don't have to do any of those things. Or if you know somebody who's dealing with some of this stuff, because we all got one person in our family, that crazy uncle, that crazy cousin, that's like, yo, she or he is all of those things at once, right? But this is just some tangible examples for you to tap into. Next slide. Now, oftentimes some of the things that I just mentioned to you guys can fall into one or two categories. Thank you, Tamara. Can fall into one or two categories. It can be either situational or biological. Let me break down the two for you. Situational is kind of when you are going through life transitions. You may experience some of the things that I just mentioned on that previous slide because you lost a family member or there was a death, right? And that's a natural grieving process. Or you just had a baby. Or you are transitioning and going to college. Or you had to leave and find a new job or something of that nature. Some things just put you in a certain category and it's situational, which means once that situation calms and settles a little bit, you'll be good. Now, the other thing is biological. And that means some of us are predisposed to having mental health issues because it runs in our family. I want you to think of it in this capacity. You know, a lot of us, black and brown, we got diabetes, we got high blood pressure, right? Cancer sometimes run in our family. When you look at those things from a biological perspective, you know that if that runs in your family, you have a higher risk of getting that as well, right? It doesn't mean that you will, but it means, okay, man, diabetes runs in my family. Let me calm down on the cakes and the pies and the sweet potatoes and the brownies and the ice cream. Let me calm down on that so I won't have those issues, right? And so the same thing applies to mental health. If your grandmother or your great-grandmother had depression, the chances of you having it goes up. So I want you to be aware. And sometimes when we're dealing with previous generations, the older generations, we didn't have all these labels of depression and, bipolar, and we didn't have all of those labels, right? And so sometimes those people had issues, but they never got a proper diagnosis, or they didn't even know. So if you know your grandma was off the rocker a little bit, and it's a joke in your family like, grandma was cray-cray, there might be a biological component that you got to tap into. Next slide. I love this quote by Dorothy Thomas. It says, peace is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to cope with it. That's good to me. I don't know if it's good to y'all. I'm going to say it again. Peace is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to cope with it. So that means, how do we cope with things when stuff happens? So we're going to talk about ways to manage life. Next slide. When we talk about ways to manage life and ability to cope with stuff, life will throw you a curveball at any given moment. How many people was expecting Kobe Bryant to die? Not one person. Can we agree that that was a smooth curveball? Woke up in the morning like, what? Quit playing. People play too much on social media. Knock it off. And I'm like, whoa, no, this is real life, right? So life can sometimes throw us curveballs that are unexpected and unavoidable. And so how we manage our mental health is built and sustained on what we do daily with those stressors, not what happens when everything piles up on our plate and then we're trying to do something about it, right? It's how we do it daily, how we manage it on a regular basis. So each person handles stress differently, and over time, we develop certain strategies that we think or feel is normal or safe. When we've been doing something for a long time, we like, yeah, that's normal, that's safe. But remember I said, at age 14 is when a lot of people struggle or begin having mental health issues. Next slide. So we cope with things in two different ways. We can either cope positively or negatively with something. And when we cope positively with something, that's the area that you want to be in, of course. But sometimes it requires more investment of your time and of your energy. So if you want to write in your journal, that means you got to designate time and energy and block off everything else that's happening in your life to write in your journal. If you want to take a vacation, go get a mani, go get a pedi, go get a massage. It takes time and sometimes money to cope positively with things. But on the flip side, a lot of us don't know how to cope positively, and we tend to cope negatively. And that's the time when we get into those quick fixes. Quick fixes that have adverse, long-term impact and effects. That's when we tap into the drinking. That's when we tap into the drug use. Or that may not even be your thing, but overeating might be your thing, right? When you get that overeating, that emotional eating, that's the whole thing, right? And those have negative, adverse effects long-term that can not only affect us, but it could affect your spouse, your children, your work, your business, or whatever, and affects those that are around you. Next slide. So I want to leave you guys, again, I'm tangible. I want to leave you guys with some positive coping skills. And what I love about this list is that it's free. It's free 99. You ain't got to go and buy none of this stuff and be like, Kiaundra done had me spending $300 on a coping skill. That's not what this is. This is free. So that means you can do things like take deep breaths, take a quick walk around the block, stand up and stretch, cook or bake. I love to cook. That is so therapeutic for me. Use positive affirmations like, I'm beautiful, I'm strong, I can do this. Watch a good movie, listen to music, laugh, pop bubble wrap. I did that this week. I don't know why Amazon sent me this big old box for this little product that was this big, and they gave me a whole bunch of bubble wrap. I was like, what am I gonna do with this? And I was like, I'm about to pop it. So I was like, pop, 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 pop. And I forgot how fun it was. You know, sometimes we have to get back to that childlike mentality, right? And kind of just tap into some of those things. Give somebody a hug, write in a journal, or watch a funny video. When I get down, my first place to go to is Instagram. I know, I'm a millennial, I'm working on it. But sometimes watching a funny video will kick me out of that mood. So my time is dwindling down, so let's go, next slide. So some of you guys are wondering, okay, this all sounds nice, Kiaundra, this mental health stuff, but I want to give you guys some places that you can tap into actually reaching for services or knowing when to get services for yourself or for one of your loved ones. And so, of course, the county, I believe, because I'm from Los Angeles, but the county of Tulare, y'all better correct me, okay? Tulare, I'm still learning, has sponsored this event. So, of course, there are local, types of mental health services, community-based services, nonprofits. I'm sure the Department of Mental Health are places that you guys can, reach out for services here. And I found a few that people don't even know. So one, most of you guys can get free mental health services from your employee assistance program. Every job, I can't say every job, but mostly jobs, especially big companies, you can go to HR and they will literally give you 3, 6, 10 free counseling sessions. I bet y'all didn't know that, huh? You just learned something. So your EAP, tap into that. Next one is your health insurance companies. If you have health insurance, you will be able to get a list of providers local to you who will be a good fit for you for individual or couples or family therapy. And it's cut off here, but we kind of talked about this before. You can also pay out of pocket, which means you pay your own money to get mental health services. Next slide. Here's some of my favorite resources, y'all. And if you ain't took one note today, you might as well whip your phone out and take a picture of this slide because these are game changers. There is directories that are specifically for us, meaning there are directories where there's only Black clinicians if you're looking for a culturally sensitive clinician. So therapy for Black girls, all Black clinicians, I'm on there. Hey, y'all can see me on there. Therapy for Black men.org. That's another list of all Black clinicians for males. Open Path Collective, one of my favorites. This is not an all Black clinician, but they offer free to low-cost therapy services, literally $30 to $60. I'm just saying, that's just cheap. And then the last one is for our LGBTQ-sensitive crowd, National Queer and Trans Therapists of Color Network. That's a list of clinicians as well for that. So, next slide. Before I wrap up, I can't say never, but I rarely speak without giving away a free gift. And so if you text MENTAL to this number, 323-307-7721, you will be provided a free mental health checklist. And it's basically a checklist for yourself that you can give to that friend or that family member that's like, go ahead and take this to see where you at with it. But it will help you manage your own mental health and for those that are around you. So that is my time. Next slide. I was going to do a Q&A, but they told me not to. So I just wanted to tell you guys you can stay connected with me on social, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and I will be here for the rest of this amazing event. So come say hey to me, take some selfies, and let's further the education on mental health. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Kiaundra. And before you leave, like she said, she'll be hanging out with us for the rest of the day. She brought her new book, Reach Your Greatness, right here. She has copies out there. If you want to take a look, I'm sure she'd be fine signing that for you. And a lot of the material that you saw here on the slideshow will be posted on our Facebook at New Life Ministries. So if there was something that you see that you liked and you want to take it home and use that, be our guest, okay?